What's happening, everyone? We're back here again with another Genshin video, but it's going to be a little bit different format this time around. I will be showing different teams I've worked around with Raiden, which is currently at C0. There's a lot of notes and disclaimers that I want to bring up first though. In this video, there will be a lot of bias due to how my account is set up. First, Raiden is C0, Sara is at C2, my Ayaka is at C4, and Rosaria is at C3. Everyone else that I use are at C6. Their weapons, constellations, artifacts, and talents will be in the link in the description below to my Twitch. While we're at it, feel free to give a follow on my Twitch as I'm more active there. I do post here in YouTube occasionally, but whatever game I'm currently active in, or any topic that I like, but any like, comment, or subscribe greatly helps. Not really my channel, but I guess my motivation to do these. Anyways, second, I do not use any male characters. They're all level 1 for me, and I have no intention of upgrading them. Some of you might have seen this account before in Exile's account video, which is like number 7. Yeah, this is the same account. Testing video will be showcased purely on floor 12-1. The main reason for this is I wanted an environment where I can quickly change my teams and use their burst synergy as soon as possible, and also deal some reasonably tanky mobs. There are definitely some big caveats on this, such as like the first floor being the floor that constantly has an electro resistance, and another is like playing around with high tide and low tide, so there's some bias with how the energy regeneration is happening. But personally, I think that's fine for me, because to a degree the electro resistance timers is somewhat DPS check, because it occasionally pops up once a while. Basically, at the end of the video, I will have my personal tier list on what's exclusive to, that's pretty much exclusive to my units, and the setup I've done. Coming up first is the fastest team I've done with my units. The clear time is 24 to 25 seconds. This setup plays around high DPS bursts with Diona, Xiangling proccing melt, and Eula's strong burst that can kill the second part. Doing swap gameplay with this team is reasonably fine, with main energy source coming from Diona and Eula. Xiangling settles herself to be one of the strongest DPS support, and with Diona aiding that, especially with her C6 EM boost, they will give tons of damage. The second part is then handled by Eula, where having Raiden's elemental skill and Eula or Diona's cryo will proc superconduct, allowing Eula to deal fast burst damage without worrying about swapping to an electro, because Raiden's elemental skill lasts for a long time. Second one to show would be a team where it heavily relies on Raiden as the main DPS. This team was one of the slowest team from the ones I've tested that I think will have some resemblance of reaction or synergy with each other. This team generates energy really well, with both Diona and Rosaria using Favonia's Vow and Favonia's Spear, and Sucrose with Sacrificial Fragments. So Rosaria could be replaced with any other DPS supports like Fischl, Beidou, or anyone really, and Sucrose with any Viridescent user in order to proc electro resistance reduction. Diona has been my go-to healer because she provides a good element coverage and also shield and heals. If you also didn't notice, it's pretty much a team filled with 4-star supports. In my opinion, having another DPS is better in order to make better use of Raiden support capabilities. But the time clear on this is also just serving as kind of like an upper bound on the clear time. I think having a slower clear than this team, where Caesar Raiden serves as the main DPS, is a team not much worth mentioning. After reviewing the video in the previous one, I noticed that it didn't show much use of the Viridescent, so here's another set with the Viridescent on Sayu. With the lower bound and upper bound kind of out of the way, let's try to explore what Sara provides. This gameplay shows technical play revolving 2 main DPS. I think this is where Sara C2 shines. As you can see here, you'll see the damage of my Raiden's full burst rotation aided by Sara and the Electros World Viridescent, and yeah, we pretty much managed to get more than half of them. And now to finish this off with Eula. With Sara's release, she's designed to be Raiden support with how her skills and cooldowns work. My Sara is C2 and in my opinion probably the minimum constellation one should play her. Without C2, she feels fairly clunky to use by either just relying on her burst or having these weird delays on using her elemental skill and then doing a charge attack. I think the flow feels disrupted when you have her use her skill and then do a charge attack. That being said though, using her at C2 provides you a fairly technical gameplay. It's even better if you try to min-max on how to use her buffs. In this particular one, ideally you would use her before using Hu Tao or before Raiden, but I think this one is just depending on the heat of the moment. It sometimes is difficult to execute it or sometimes you want to use something else. In the next clip though, I will show this better. So the rotation goes as follows. We use Raiden's skill and then swap to Sara and then use her E or Q and then swap to Eula and do her rotation. I should use Sara's burst actually to do that so we can start regenerating the burst earlier, but I got away with this due to the high tide and low tide. After Eula though, we go ahead and use every other burst while ending into Sara and then Raiden. We basically repeat the rotation and I would have swapped Sara before Eula, but I knew the Eula's damage was enough to finish it off. Here's another clear with Sara, and the other DPS this time around is Xiangling. We buff Xiangling's burst with Raiden, Sara, and Diona and should allow you to a very fluid gameplay. What I personally like about this combination is just the fact that you have basically an elemental buffet. We actually cleared the mob so fast that we end up killing the first wave before the first wave of the electro resist is up, and so we ended up having my Raiden being restricted on the second wave immediately. We tried to charge back Xiangling and Diona in order to remove the enemy's electro resist. I could see this having some issues with energy regeneration in general, so personally that's why having Diona with Favonius Warbow helps with the energy generation. The rest of this gameplay is basically just use everything on cooldown while trying to make sure that to use Sara before Raiden or Xiangling. After a few testing, I started seeing how really good Xiangling and Diona are. I basically started now just slapping any DPS and support with Raiden, Xiangling, and Diona. It's nice to see how extremely consistent they are. This also kind of helped me compare the other DPS with each other. It is biased because it'll also essentially be who synergizes with Xiangling and Diona the most, but when I give it a thought, it will just show the consistency of how the run differs when Raiden is present. I personally wouldn't fully compare each of these based on the clear time, but rather how fluid they were when playing together. Some of the runs were unstable due to how I approach it or how some of the AIs were gripping up. However, for each of them, I tried to make sure that the substitute is the main focus as much as possible and doing whatever they specialize into. Let's explore Yoimiya a bit more. Here's a side-by-side of having Yoimiya, Raiden, and Diona while changing the last either one to Mona or Fischl. Both teams end up actually being roughly equal to each other. One cool thing about Yoimiya is she's one of the few who have Raiden's design kept in mind. Other units that give thick damage like Beidou, Rosaria, or others are also fine substitutes. I also really like just seeing so much numbers popping out whenever we use Yoimiya. Her cooldown complements Raiden's cooldown, so you can swap the two interchangeably. Finally, here are some random teams I tried out with for not much reason, but just for the sake of having more sample. I have one with Rosaria, Xiangling, and Barbara, mainly used for Barbara just for the heals. I also used Xinyan in one of the team and tried to play her like a substitute of Eula in like from the one of the earlier clips shown. Xinyan works fine, but just using her also makes you suffer a lot of energy regeneration, and also just her damage range is so small. But hey, kudos to you if you play Xinyan. I have Sara, Mona, Diona, which is basically all there to support Raiden. Needless to say, yeah, it's pretty slow when it's all support and having Raiden as the sole DPS. As mentioned earlier, I think having another DPS is where Raiden truly shines. Last one I set up is with Yanfei, and Yanfei is pretty similar to Klee, but just kind of weaker. There are many units where I didn't bother to actually play them since I figure it's straightforward how they'll affect Raiden, like Noelle, Lisa, or Amber. For now, let's talk about my personal rating for the top DPS and top support that goes along with Raiden. Top Raiden DPS partners are the following. First one is Eula, where we get to use her hyper carry to its full potential, getting the superconduct debuff with the electro support of Raiden plus the increased burst damage allows for some really nice parses. Ganyu C6 is also not anything to scoff at, with so much filler that you can include with her C6 while maintaining a good swap gameplay. You can also use the range coverage as a breather if needed. Last one in this tier is Xiangling. An extremely well-built Xiangling provides a good amount of damage. I was debating whether to categorize Xiangling as DPS or support, and I thought about it and the answer was yes. Next tier below Eula and Ganyu are Yoimiya, Hu Tao, Klee, Ayaka, and non-C6 Ganyu. If anything, as you notice, it's those that can proc additional elemental reaction with Electro. The idea behind it is they provide fairly good damage and filler while Raiden is on cooldown and takes advantage of Raiden's E skill tick. A tier below it is Keqing, and the main reason she's not in the bottom is mainly due to her raw damage being 5-star. Yanfei is kind of together with Keqing due to her typing and does elemental damage reaction with Raiden. The last DPS tier would basically be the rest I didn't mention. You could say that Ningguang might be a step above Xinyan and others, but the idea behind it is basically that they don't really provide much difference if Raiden is the main DPS or that their effect is negligible with Raiden. In terms of top Raiden support partners, I think you have a good idea who I'll mention. Coming at the top are Xiangling, Diona, Mona, Ganyu C4. The reasons are obvious, with Xiangling being really good DPS and Diona provides good element typing, which is cryo, while providing shield and heals, and at C6 also provides elemental mastery. Mona and C4 Ganyu are there to provide additional damage and also good element typing that will complement the rest of the team. The next tier below are Rosaria, Sara C6, and Fischl C6 with Elegy, Bow, and Tenacity artifact set. Rosaria carries mainly a good element typing, which is why I put her here instead of a lower tier. Sara C6 will end up being good as a Raiden support and also in general just as a buffer for another DPS. Sara's main downside is her reaction game is kind of weak, but she exists just as a buffer and nothing else. This Fischl that I mentioned is a specific build that I have, and one of the reasons why I put it is because Fischl is one of the few units where I can actually use Tenacity, and also combined with Elegy and her C6, she ends up being a pretty decent buffer. A tier below those is basically any Electro support like Fischl or Beidou, and Anemo support like Sucrose, Sayu. Electro supports will provide better energy regen with Electro Resonance, and Anemo support will provide Electro Shred with their Viridescent. The rest would be after these units, as either they don't synergize well or I don't use them. If you've made it this far in the video or maybe skipped this, well, thank you for watching this video. As a final reminder, again, people should know why I didn't include some units here. I figured just making this video because I enjoy playing Raiden, and I just wanted to see where this video will take me actually. I didn't really have any plan or anything to get out of this actually, but I just like making videos once in a while. I didn't mean this to be a complete guide or anything. There's many other content creators that do provide really good guides, and my situation probably doesn't apply to everyone. Regardless, still, I hope that the video is still helpful with some bits. I plan on getting my Raiden to C6 eventually, and I'll see if I end up making more video with more units or different testing environment, like or when the electro resistance is gone on Next Abyss. I'm pretty sure they're probably gonna remove the remove that electro resistance in floor 12 eventually. Probably Next Abyss, because they want to highlight Raiden more. I constantly stream in Twitch, and come and join or follow if you guys would like to hang out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time.